Hey everyone, this is Dr. B, and I got a question in one of my short YouTube videos this past week. Claudia asked, "Can you tell us more about peer-to-peer supports around bullying?" Because really, what we know from bullying is that it's a power differential, right? And it's not going to be fixed by just setting up a new power differential. So if the bully gets in trouble for overpowering somebody else, and then another person who's more powerful comes in and then overpowers the bully temporarily, it doesn't solve the problem of bullying because we're still in the same cycle. Somebody's bullying somebody to overpower them, and then there's a victim, and it doesn't balance out the power differential in any way. And so, what's important to understand about people and power is that in reality, equity is possible. I know people think that's a dream, think that's a fantasy, but in reality, equity is possible. And the currency to get to equity are feelings. Like, you don't get to equity by trading money. You really get to equity by understanding another person's feelings about a situation or just how they feel in a circumstance, especially one that reflects a power differential. So I'm going to use a really current event example that happened in my own community, and I'm really, really unnerved by it. And I think the whole world is, because this image went out to the entire globe of as a bullying event. I think that some people think of it as less serious than others do. I certainly think that it's a very serious event that happened. And I'm going to post the image here in this video. But it was a bunch of high school seniors on picture day, and several people had one letter on their shirt, and they spelled a derogatory slur and posted it on social media. So you can imagine, if you post a word with high school seniors who have influence at their school, and it's clearly a demeaning term targeted at a marginalized group, that this is bigger than bullying. You know, this isn't just a high school prank. This is a coordinated and a conspired event to hurt people's feelings and potentially make them feel scared. When I hear people talk about how to handle bullying, like, oh, suspension, expulsion, all of these things, my mind goes to the underlying fear that happens with people when they're being bullied, but there really isn't a resolve with the relationship, because we have to resolve the relationship at some level before we can move on. And the person who's the target of the bullying doesn't have fear anymore. Because even if somebody got expelled for doing something mean to them, well, that just puts them almost in even a more vulnerable position, because now they've gotten in trouble for doing it. And so we're not winning the game here. What we have to do is bring people together, and it becomes uncomfortable at times, obviously. There's a very famous, and I admire him tremendously, Marshall Rosenberg, who really developed what's called nonviolent communication. It's a whole way of communicating in order to get to a place where people really can understand the perspective of another person. It requires a really sophisticated person to facilitate a group like this, and it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in just, a couple of meetings where people sit down and begin to really connect and really talk about what's going on here. How does this make you feel? How does this make you feel? But really, when the expectation is that we're going to get to the root cause of why people are feeling what they're feeling, and it doesn't even really matter why they're feeling it, it just matters what they're feeling. So we're going to address, like, can I find a way within me to understand and be sensitive to your feelings in order to also feel safe to share my feelings, so that maybe you can gain a perspective or window into what my world is like. So, this would be fabulous if we could do this in every family, in every school, in every, situation, but we don't approach the world of communication like this in general. We approach communication as, somewhat of a combative thread to it. We never stop to say, how did that make me feel? And was the feeling that I wanted to share with somebody else the feeling that I delivered? And this requires slowing down, being within your body and your mind, and having to really, really face responsibility for your thoughts and your actions and your perspective on whatever the situation might be. So, Claudia, when I'm talking about peer-to-peer support, it's not just you say you're sorry and it'll all be okay and we can just put this behind us. Because we all know we've all had somebody make somebody say sorry to us before, or make us say sorry to somebody when we were not sorry. Means nothing. Like, that's just a waste of breath. And in reality, asking people to come together to really learn who they are and who they are in the presence of somebody else that they don't understand is where the real treasure happens. Because as a human, we're wired, remember, to connect. We're wired for our emotional, systems to sort of sync with each other and match feelings with each other. And we are wired emotionally, remember, through our amygdala and our neurobiological system to respond to threat and danger within our body before our mouths and our mind. So when we ask people to sit down together with a neutral facilitator and we let the conversation just keep going and going and going until there actually begins to be some understanding, well, that's really when understanding happens. But most of us, adults, all adolescents and others, really don't often have the patience or the endurance or the ability to tolerate the uncomfortableness of letting that happen. We can't sit in the uncomfortableness of having done something really mean and unkind to somebody and then having to listen to how that impacted them emotionally, or vice versa. To sit with somebody who's harmed you and threatened you and scared you and made you feel vulnerable, and then be willing to share your feelings, like, that can be really difficult and uncomfortable as well. So the gift and the beauty is bringing these two people or groups together in order to do the work together and be patient enough to let it work, and being able to be neutral. We don't have to put a judgment on the behavior or the activity or event that happened. What we need to do is literally just allow everybody to feel the feelings that everybody had as an experience of that event. And that, I guarantee you, will absolutely change the way everybody who witnessed the event will think about it in the future, or will think about it when a familiar situation like that happens again. And so when I say peer-to-peer support, that's what I'm talking about. Like, we have to be invested enough to take the time, the energy, and the willingness to stay the course and not just fold at the first time that it becomes uncomfortable. So bullying is a big problem. And it can be deadly. I've talked about that. I think I talked about that in some of the videos that I posted that are, older content, but it's certainly evergreen today. Like, this was a giant bullying event that happened in my community that went global. It can be deadly. It certainly can be life interfering because people are scared. Just look around. We have so many different kinds of bullying. But when we decide that we're going to go in and understand, when we decide that we're going to go in and learn how to empathize, and when we decide to go in and learn how to take a different perspective, that's where the real healing happens and the real change happens. But it absolutely takes time. And that means that teachers, schools, administrators, parents, and everybody involved need to be committed to the process. But if we don't commit to that process and we just allow people to, say sorry, it's not going to last. And even though somebody says that they're sorry after doing something so heinous, if the party that was harmed doesn't feel that, they're not going to believe it, and they're still going to be vulnerable and scared and feel threatened, and probably rightly so. because it doesn't necessarily just go away because somebody says sorry. It's a highly overrated word. But all right, so Claudia, there you go. If you have questions, leave them back in the comments and I will come back to you. Or if other people have questions, I'd love to get in a dialogue. So if you're liking this content or if you have other questions, please subscribe, check the little notification box. You know, if you like it, hit the like button and leave me a comment because I'm curious what you think about all of this. It's a tumultuous time that we live in. So with that, leave a life print.